Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Smash Property Podcast. I'm Nick V, this is Akira, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about how long it really should take you to find a deal out there in the property market.
Yes.
A week, a month, a year? What are you doing?
Yeah.
We're going to drop some value in there as to what you should be looking for before you even get your pre-approval. But before we get there, Akira, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really looking for today's juicy topic.
I'm pumped for this one. This is going to be really good. Tons of value for the viewers, the listeners, whatever they are doing. And with that, let's dive straight into it.
Get right into it. Yeah, 100%.
Running at it. Now, what do you do before you even get your pre-approval?
You want to have a strategy, right? You want to know what you need in the portfolio, or even if it's just your first property, right? So bottom line is research. The
word that often turns a lot of people away because it just seems like it's really hard. Ugh. And it's, I'm not going to lie, it is time consuming because there's a lot of stuff you need to look through. Mm-hmm. But maybe we'll go through a couple of points as to what people should be looking for. And the reason being you want to get it before your pre-approval. It takes time, right? Once you have your pre-approval, the clock's ticking. You've got 90 days for the most part to, put offers in, get them accepted, get it done without having to reapply and stuff like that. So you want to do all this stuff before your pre-approval.
Exactly. You want to be efficient. Make the most of the whole process. And I feel like the last thing you want to do is be pre-approved and then feel like a headless chicken.
You don't want to be that dork that's, scrambling around, trying to figure stuff out.
At the last minute when you're meant to be. You don't want to be
last minute. Larry's. All right.
No, agree. I think having a good strategy and understanding of where your boat is needing to sail, your direction is super important to make sure that you're not, once you're pre-approved, taking another year after that. And then the rates go up and then the market changes. And then you're like, oh, should I even bother doing this? Like it just, if you're not ready to go once you're pre-approved, it kind of puts you in a position where you're fluffing about.
Yeah. And so let's dive into, maybe I'm going to start with what research isn't. Okay, research isn't you going onto realestate.com and you pick your property type, house, you pick your, your price range, under 800, and then you zoom in on the map and you zoom in over Sydney or you zoom in over Brisbane and you just go, okay, well, that area has, property for 800. That's not research.
Yeah.
Okay, going on realestate.com alone is not research.
Really?
Really?
What is it then? Tell me.
So, one of the first key points of research is, and particularly the property, but almost any investment that you have, is understanding the data behind your investment. Now, let me kind of expand a little bit more on what that data means because it gets thrown around quite a lot.
Yeah, give like a full briefing on what it is specifically.
So, our research process encapsulates, I'm going to say, at least 50 data points on a particular area. Now, you don't need to go into all of those 50 data points, but you're going to need to know at least a couple things. Exactly. Those being, what is the capital growth rate of the area from a historical standpoint? Okay, what is it over 10 years? What is it over 30 years? What has it done, right? You need to know before you buy. That's why you're buying. You want the growth, right? Understand what that is. You need to know some things like rental yield. What is the expected rental yield of the areas that you're looking to invest in?
The average.
Average. Obviously, once you find your property, you can work it out more accurately, but what are you looking for, right? Third thing is, what's the vacancy rates in that particular area? Super important. You don't want to buy in an area and there's high vacancy rates. You're not going to get your tenant in there quickly.
Wasting time.
Time. How long what's the average days on market in a particular area? Now, this is really important because you can see how quickly stock is flying through the market. Is it quick? Is it not? What's happening? We also want to look at things like average vendor discounting, right? Because if vendors are discounting in a particular area, might indicate it's slowing down, stock's being on the market a lot longer than normal. Maybe you can find a discount, but maybe you also don't want to buy there because it's slowing down of the market.
How can we explain this very simply? Like, I guess when you're shopping for food, you don't want to get the reduced to clear stuff sometimes because
Depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Depends on what the expiry date is. But no,
what my metaphor is like if no one wants it, there might be a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
So just understand and unpick what you're trying to analyze within that data set that you're looking at.
Exactly. So data, those are some of the key points, some of the major points that you'd want to get a view on with the data that you're looking at. Okay. There are, like I mentioned, a whole bunch of other points that we go through as professionals in the industry, but I'm not going to bore the viewers with all that stuff. But there's also other things outside of data, and I'll let you expand on that when it talks about the market itself.
Market research, super important. So this one kind of gives you an indication of what that specific area and pockets within those suburbs are doing. So what this specifically means is understanding what government incentives are there. Is there infrastructure going in? Is there a railway? Are there trains? Are there, commercial industry kind of stuff going into that pocket? That's important because then that overlays into what types of demographics are going to be there. And we'll cover that separately. But most importantly, it gives you an understanding of the economy within that pocket. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a clear understanding in the direction, is there infrastructure going in, is there money being put into the area, then that gives you a bit of a lull in the property market if there's no money being invested.
Yeah.
So from my experience, at least, you follow the breadcrumbs from what the government is showing on where they're putting in money, higher infrastructure with commercial, those types of things, because that will give you a good indication, what the area is going to look like, not just within the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Those are important things to understand.
Yeah. And I mean, we look at, for a very long time now, we're looking at master plans of, particular areas, looking at planning approvals because, at the end of the day, you want to look at the supply and demand. Like, is there a whole new suburb going to be built, next door?
That's right.
You want to understand all these things before you put your money in there.
And then the reason why that's important is that then means more jobs. Supply and demand comes into effect there. So if you know that that area is growing, that the areas within the city of that particular pocket, whether it's regional or city-based, then you get a clearer understanding, all right, there's more money, that means more jobs, more people, potentially more homeowners. That's super important because then you know that your property is going to be in a secure location, not somewhere where nobody wants to live. Yeah.
So there's a lot, obviously, that you can look at when it comes to the market and a lot of different levels of stuff that you'd want to look at and understand before sort of taking that dive in. But then also, once you've sort of honed in on an area, you want to understand the demographics of the particular area. So things like, renters, owner occupiers in the area. Is there a lot of families or not in the area? What's the average income? Where are those people working? What's the main sort of industry of employment for those people in that area? And the reason you want to know all that stuff is, for example, if an area that you're looking at is reliant and dependent on one particular type of industry, that's going to be a little bit more of a higher risk because if that industry slows down, or closes down, there's not going to be any jobs, not going to be any people, and it's going to evaporate.
And I mean, just looking at history, I mean, like there's mining towns. Maybe we can use that as an example. Say one mine shuts down in a massive mining town. That whole area, all the people are going to move out of there because there's no work.
Yep. I mean, there's been horror stories over the years where, mining towns, the properties, double, triple, quadruple in price, and then the mine shuts down and then they're, worth less than half of what you paid for them.
You can't get a tenant in there. So
that's all very important stuff.
Yeah, that risk is important to understand so you mitigate that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like I said, that in itself, if you're working full time, like when we were on the come up building the portfolio, obviously you got your day job, you come home, you got that sort of stuff to do. You want to go to the gym, you want to cook dinner, you want to do whatever. Like that, let's be real, it takes a lot of time if you're doing it on your own.
Yeah, agree. And if you're not doing it, you can often buy in areas that stay stagnant. I mean, I know a lot of people that have bought properties and they haven't really gone up in value.
Yeah.
Like one of our clients, they bought a property in the wrong suburb within Melbourne, and it's probably sat flat for about 3 years from what we looked at. So
yeah, which is unfortunate. So
what you want to avoid if you're growing it.
Keeping with the theme of this podcast is how long should it take to find a good deal?
Yeah.
That what we just spoke about is obviously you'd want to do all this before you've got your pre-approval. Why? Because it's going to take you a bit of time if you're doing it yourself to get all that information, right? That in itself, doing this properly is enough to turn a lot of people away because it is hard. Like
it's a bit of a headache.
And it is a bit of a headache. And like we said, if you're working full time and this, where are you going to find the time to go through all that? Like it is possible if you really want it. But the reality is it takes a bit of time.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe we speak from firsthand experience. Like we were fortunate because we both kind of leveraged each other and, you know, we both had a passion for it. So it kind of extrapolated and went quicker. So you took care of some aspects of the research. I did too. So then it made it move quickly. But I think if you're doing it solo and, you know, you have to rely and don't have anyone to sense check, you know, what you're trying to understand in analyzing the data and the information, it could be stressful, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, because then you start second guessing yourself and whatnot.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what we've just spoken about, like, let's say you're on the ball, you kind of know where to go, what you're doing. That research process can probably take you no more than a couple of weeks, if that, right? You know what you're doing, you're getting into it. If you don't know, obviously it's going to take longer, maybe months, all right?
Yeah.
So we've done that research part, then we've gone to our broker, we've got our pre-approval in place. Now the fun part of actually hunting for the deal and how long that should actually take. Now for us, you know, buying, you know, properties over the years, I would say on average, it's probably taken us around 8 weeks from start to finish in terms of looking, finding, having an offer accepted, all that sort of thing.
This is whilst we were working 9
whilst
to
working
5.
full time.
Yeah.
So, and the reason why is there are deals out there every single day of the week for starters. But the thing that we found, and every property investor will go through, is you put offers in, maybe it's not accepted, maybe you can't agree on terms, maybe you can't agree on price, or maybe you do, but then there's an issue with, you know, building a pest where there's an actual structural problem that you don't want to buy the property, then you got to pull out and you got to find another deal.
Yeah.
That takes some time. Now, not that we've had to pull out of a lot of deals, but deals just fall through through the natural course of, you know, being
100%.
human.
And I think with that, it's also understanding once you get to the point where you're ready to pull the trigger on a property, that is also, if you have the normal settlement terms of 21-day finance, etc., it could take about a month before you actually close off the whole
Before you
experience.
close the deal, I'm also token that 8 weeks is just to actually find one, get an offer accepted. Obviously, there's settlement periods which sort of extend further than that.
Correct.
So, look, all in all, you know, from the research to your pre-approval stage to having, you know, offers in and accepted, it takes a few months really to get that going and to actually settle on a deal.
But I think what we have learnt is being in it as a BA, you kind of get the value and leverage because you're doing it every single day.
Yeah.
So because you constantly are looking at something, you quickly pull that timeline in because, you know, you're getting deals off market, on market. You're looking at the demographics, you're looking at the market research, the data consistently. Yep. So then with anything, practice makes perfect, right?
Definitely.
You experience, you know, your ability to understand what type of property is going to serve a goal. Works so much quicker.
No, 100%. And I think, you know, we're talking from a perspective of DIY, doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Obviously coming to professionals like us. I mean, I've got how many, you know, dozens of off-market deals sitting in my inbox that if anyone came to us today, we could have a deal for them today. Like
literally.
It's really that quick. But, you know, we're in it every day, you know, in the grind of, you know, the property market. So I guess you got to, you know, weigh up that choice and go, look, is it worthwhile me doing it myself, spending all that time to maybe get it right? Or maybe you've got the confidence to go through all those things that we mentioned and really nail it, then DIY is for you. Go for it.
Yeah.
But we work with a lot of time poor professionals, people that don't want to go through all that research and all that stuff. They outsource it to people like us, again, who are in it every single day. so that when deals come up, we can just go, yep, that one's for you, that one's for you, that one's for you.
That ticks your criteria and your boxes.
And get it done. Yeah. I mean,
correct.
so going off when we were doing it our own, 8 weeks to really find a deal, but now as professionals in the industry, when clients come to us, it's less than a week.
Yeah, and I mean, even for
days, and boom,
ourselves,
you've got
when
your
we're
deal.
looking for properties
Super quick.
in our portfolio,
Yeah.
like it's so enjoyable because like once you have a process and a clear understanding of what you need to get and what you need to look for, it actually becomes quite satisfying. It's like getting better at hunting.
Yeah, well, it is. It's like I have this like laugh at myself sometimes, like I'm the property whisperer, because it's like when people come to us, I'm like, okay, here's your budget, here's your criteria, this. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Leave it with me. And then like there'll be, next couple of days, I'm like, bang, there's a deal off market. Here you go. Done.
100%. Like I had someone call me looking for a property a bit higher than a normal investment range, quite a bit higher actually. It was for an owner occupier on this circumstance. And it was one of those things because I had spoken to an agent not a couple of weeks prior. I was like, I'm going to tie these two people together.
Exactly right. You just sort of connect the dots and bridge the gaps for people, which
100%.
is the power of a BA and where the real value actually lies in a BA that does the job properly.
And I think it comes down to time, right? If I think if you're a competent person, you can do it, like you said before.
Yeah, 100%.
It just comes down to having the resources, the time, the energy to be able to nail it.
Yeah.
And I think most importantly, though, is there are people that I speak to quite often as well where, they call through and they're like, oh, I've been looking for the past 1 year, 2 years even.
Yeah, that stings when they say that.
I'm like, what have you been
just
doing?
missed out
What
on
is your
so much
process?
growth. Like, yeah.
And I feel like the disheartening part there is that, you're looking, the market's changing, the rates are changing, your whole borrowing power has changed. So it's super important that you make the decision on how you want to tackle it early on so that you don't get into that like position where you're upset about not finding something.
Yeah. No, it's quite surprising. Yeah. And I can understand why. It's a massive investment.
It's your life savings for some people. So.
Yeah. I think for most people, they pump their life savings into this. So you kind of want to make sure you're getting it right, which in my head, like, makes total sense that if you're not sure, just outsource it to someone who actually knows. But the trick is finding someone who really does know.
Yeah, and we live in a beautiful day and age where you have that ability to connect with people with the internet and, understanding that you have podcasts available, books to read, like...
Tune in to Smash Property Podcast.
You can equip yourself.
We will turn... You know what I'm excited to is... the amount of people that we're going to turn into millionaires or have already turned into millionaires.
Yeah, it's special when you get to understand how young some of our investors are.
Yeah.
And then you think about you actually analyze their growth projection with their
there's been a couple of like 20-something-year-olds and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I can't wait till you're like 60 years old. And then you're like, well, that Nick guy really helped me out buying a property 40 years ago.
Nobody speaks like that in their 60s.
No, well, yeah, maybe the 80s. I don't know. But that's going to be super cool. But you had a story of a investor that you'd spoke to recently. So why don't you kind of share a little bit about that story?
Yeah, definitely. It comes to mind quite often because I think it's one of those things. I'm very passionate with this role. Like, because if, for me, I know I can help someone, I want to do my best to do that, honestly. So I spoke to a gentleman and he was looking out for his son. He's an investor himself. He's got multiple jobs and, he's just in the circumstance where he's got a lot going on, but he wants to get his son in the market. His son's in banking. He's got a great job. He's got a solid head on his shoulders as well. When I spoke to him, he's got direction of where he wants to be and how he wants to get there. However, the concern that came about was the fact that they then focus on the wrong things. So unfortunately in their circumstance, they kind of got burnt using a BA who onboarded them, took a bunch of money. I think it was upwards of 5K.
Wow.
And it's a year and a half and they still haven't found a deal. A year and a half later using a professional.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things from my perspective with then how do we move forward from here? All right, you've wasted a year and a half. You've got your pre-approval though, so you can go quite quickly. So you've reevaluated that and redone it.
Yeah.
But then now you're fixated on the wrong thing, on getting that $5,000 back whilst trying to find a property. So I guess the story, or what I'm trying to, communicate most importantly, is know where your focus needs to lie.
Yeah.
Because when you're penny pinching and worrying about the wrong goal instead of focusing on the bigger picture, you get trapped into leaving things for a longer period of time.
Yeah, and that's I know we've obviously gone through that particular story. Firstly, I think like, I don't know, like just that BA thing, right? Like taking $5,000 and not finding a fucking deal. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just shit. Like, that's really hard. Because what's happened now is those particular people would have, there's now an element of resentment.
Yeah.
Right, it's like, well, we paid, we haven't got a thing. So now, like, to your point, now they're focused on where's my money, not so what's my money actually doing.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful when I said penny pinching. I just mean like in the sense of for $5,000 you've got borrowing of over $700K.
Yeah.
Like, you're in a great position still.
Yeah. Like
refocus your energy.
Could have bought a couple of properties in that time. Like,
exactly.
So super, like, I guess sad story for that particular investor. But I think from my perspective too, like, that you've got to do your research on the people that you're working with.
Yeah.
Which in today's day, like, people are getting very savvy with, you know, fake reviews and all this kind of thing. So you've got to be super careful with it. And I think one of the best ways to really, connect and see people is, online, like what we're doing here. You can see our podcast, you can see us, you see who we are, pick up the phone, talk to us, come and see us.
I mean, we're happy to have a coffee with people. Like, I think it's people's livelihood that you're dealing with, right? So it's not just like, come in, take your money, find your property, I'll scroll and
that's what, like,
there's a lot of scammy
like, there's so much like just get them in, get them out, high volume buyers agencies out there. And like, I'm not want to turn this into a shitting all over, our competition, but like, at the end of the day, if your BA is not offering you a 100% money back guarantee, walk away.
Yeah.
Because like you fall into traps like these guys did. And then a year later, you don't have a property and you're out of pocket $5,000. Terrible. I don't want to sort of, go down the path
digress, but I think the most important thing to just run that out is do your research.
Research. And just get ready to just pump the trigger.
Yeah, it's an exciting time as well. Like, I feel like we're not trying to be negative. It should be something that's super exciting. Like, the younger clients that we have, they have this mindset of knowing, they're quick to make decisions, which is great.
Love that.
They're decisive. They evaluate their position. They're willing to learn. And it just makes the journey so much more enjoyable.
It is. Like, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like, the younger clients we work with, I absolutely love it because, like, I know in my heart of hearts that I've always got their best interests at heart. So I'm never going to send them down a pathway where it's like they're buying dog shit properties.
That's right.
But they're always super cool to work with. Why? Because they're willing to learn. They ask good questions. And I'm more than happy to share that because it's like this person is starting their journey. And I know that, like, they will remember this, long into their lives. And that's what means the most to me.
Exactly. Because I think for you and I, we've said this before, if we had someone to help us, imagine what position
we've said it before. It's like, if I had me helping me, holy Jesus, I would be in a whole new different spotlight.
From 10 years ago.
We sort of... I think we digressed a little bit there, but that's all right. That's what these chats are all about. How long should it take you to find a deal? At the end of the day, if you've done your research, you've got your pre-approval, it really shouldn't take you more than a couple of days, if more than a week, to find a deal, because they're out there all the time. But it's a matter of how quickly can you pull the trigger, make the decision, negotiate, get the deal done. That's
have enthusiasm and be excited about it, because that positive energy will drive you forward as well.
Yeah, and we said it in literally the podcast earlier last week was you're going to have these feelings of doubt. these nervous feelings, the jitters. But at the end of the day, if you're doing all of these things that we've mentioned, that you can put that aside and know that you've made the right decision.
Circle back to the first podcast ever. It was all about mindset, and mindset is gonna just make everything easier. And make sure you drive in the right direction as well.
Get it going. That's
it's exciting.
Get into it. Make it happen, guys.
Yeah.
Don't sit on it too long. Wait 10 years and you wished and hoped and coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Coulda,
all that
shoulda,
stuff.
woulda. What is it?
Coulda, woulda, shoulda, something like that. So that's, I think, a ton of sort of stories and value drops that we have
I hope, yes.
offered. Yeah, I hope. Next podcast. The next podcast. We have a podcast where we are going to do somewhat of a Q&A with me. We're going to be in a great location. We'll keep that under wraps until we actually unveil. But if you have any questions that you feel like you want to have answered by me on the podcast, send them through, whether you comment, whether you DM, you text us, you call us, whatever it might be. Let us know of the questions. We've had some awesome questions so far. Some non-property related, some property related. I'll go through them all.
Kind of keeping them away from you just so you don't get too much time to think about it.
Yeah, so they'll be kind of like off the cuff style of questions. So anything.
I'm processing through the
There's
questions.
no question off limits. I'm going to go through stuff about my career, property investing, business, the whole lot.
It's important to know why we should trust you, right? No guiding us with
what better way to do a sort of point and shoot Q&A. The location is going to be lit. I cannot wait for that. Next podcast. So a couple of weeks from now, that will be released. Questions, send it our way. But until then, thanks for going through this one today. How long should it take you to find a good deal? I was going to say.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for the support, and thank you for watching this week's episode of the Smash Property Podcast. As always, I'm Nick V. This is Akira. Thanks so much for watching. Until next week, we'll catch you soon.
Ciao.